Welcome back. Today we join a craftsman building a permanent shelter deep in a birch forest, racing against the incoming winter with only hand tools. The foundation determines everything that follows. He begins by establishing a level floor platform over the charred posts. By charring the wood, the timber becomes highly resistant to moisture and rot, a crucial defense in damp forest soil. Diagonal cross-bracing is then nailed between the joists. This rigid framework locks the entire subfloor together, distributing lateral loads and preventing the cabin from shifting as the seasons change. As the walls rise, the focus shifts to the roof structure. He climbs the open frame to position the central ridge beam. This single span of timber is the structural spine of the cabin. It will support the entire weight of the snow load during the winter months. He works his way down the rafters, securing the initial layer of wooden roof decking. Each plank acts as a shear panel. Together, they bind the independent rafters into a single, cohesive canopy. With the first layer of roof decking complete, an essential moisture barrier is applied. A synthetic waterproof membrane is stapled tight across the surface. While the exterior will rely on traditional wooden shingles, this modern underlayment guarantees a completely dry interior. Wooden battens are then nailed directly over the membrane. These strips create a vital air gap between the waterproof layer and the final shingles above. Proper ventilation prevents condensation from rotting the roof from the inside out. It allows the structure to breathe. The heavy work continues above, demanding precise joinery even at height. V-shaped cuts allow the remaining structural beams to interlock seamlessly with the ridge. A hand drill prevents the dry timber from splitting when driving the heavy fasteners. The quiet, methodical pace of hand tool construction leaves the surrounding environment largely undisturbed. This allows the local wildlife to pass through the site without alarm. As the final layer of decking goes down over the battens, the cabin is fully enclosed from the rain. The next phase requires patience and an immense amount of repetitive labor. He sits down with a drawknife to hand-carve the exterior roof shingles. Unlike machine-sawn timber, splitting and shaving wood by hand follows the natural grain. This technique preserves the continuous wood fibers along the face of each shingle. Water will simply shed off the unbroken surface, drastically extending the lifespan of the roof. Every individual piece must be shaped to a slight taper to ensure they overlap perfectly. With the roof sealed, attention turns to the cabin's exterior envelope. He begins by stapling strips of dense felt along the exposed wall joints. Corners are highly susceptible to wind penetration and heat loss. Compressing this fibrous material behind the exterior trim creates a dense thermal break, sealing any slight irregularities between the horizontal logs. He then takes an axe to shape the vertical corner boards. Using an axe for this rough carpentry is remarkably efficient in experienced hands. The heavy blade quickly removes excess material, squaring up the raw lumber for a flush fit against the cabin walls. Working near the ground, a small hand axe allows for fine adjustments to the lower trim, ensuring the wood clears the damp forest floor. Moving upward, the structural edges of the roof must be protected from the weather. He installs a series of metal brackets before lifting the heavy fascia boards into place. The fascia locks the ends of the roof rafters together, providing a solid, flat surface to finish the roof line. Securing these long pieces single-handedly requires careful balance and sequence. Every nail driven here defends the vulnerable end grain of the roof structure against wind-driven rain. The exterior shell is now tightly bound. light is a crucial resource in the dense forest canopy. To construct the windows, he opens a specialized tool. This record plow plane is engineered specifically to cut uniform grooves along the edge of a board. By adjusting the fence and depth stop, the iron blade shaves a perfect channel with each pass. This groove allows the clear acrylic pane to be securely seated directly within the wooden frame. Requiring no modern adhesives, acrylic is chosen over glass for its resilience to the extreme temperature fluctuations of the backwoods. The completed unit is then mounted into the rough opening, instantly transforming the dark interior. A simple wooden trim locks the entire assembly flush against the exterior siding. Before focusing on the heating system, the remaining gaps around the window frame are tightly packed with felt insulation. Stopping drafts is just as important as generating heat. Inside the cabin, he begins assembling a small cast iron wood stove. Cast iron is the ideal material for a compact shelter. It absorbs the intense heat of the fire and radiates it slowly, moderating the interior temperature long after the flames have died down. Heat shields are positioned against the wooden walls, a non-negotiable safety measure to prevent the dry pine framing from combusting. Outside, a metal flashing plate is secured over the exhaust exit. This keeps the harsh elements out, while allowing the hot chimney pipe to pass safely through. He slides the stainless steel stovepipe through the wall collar, creating a seamless exhaust path. The vertical height of the exterior chimney is critical. A taller pipe creates a stronger draft, using the rising column of hot exhaust to actively pull fresh combustion air into the stove. Back inside, the entire heating unit is anchored to a heavy metal floor plate. This provides a fireproof barrier against stray sparks and embers falling onto the pine floorboards. He drills heavy screws directly through the metal, locking the cast iron unit in place so it cannot shift. A secure stove is the heart of a safe winter shelter. The first fire marks the moment a structure truly becomes a shelter. He lights a small pile of dry kindling, establishing a draft in the cold chimney pipe before adding heavier split logs. As the cast iron begins to absorb and radiate the energy, the chill is finally driven from the room. Outside, smoke rises through the birch canopy, a quiet signal of warmth in the graying landscape. With the interior warming, work resumes on the exterior envelope. He clamps a board to the sawhorse and uses a chisel to carve a deep, continuous groove. This profile is not merely decorative. It acts as a drip edge, forcing rainwater to fall away from the window frame rather than seeping into the delicate joints. A hand plane takes down any rough spots before the trim is fitted to the cabin wall. Nailing the frame in place caps the vulnerable edges of the siding, shielding the interior from lateral wind and rain. As snow begins to accumulate, the urgency to seal the structure increases. He takes precise measurements for the final trim pieces, utilizing a block plane to shave a slight bevel into the bottom edge. This angle will encourage water runoff and prevent ice from pooling against the sill. Working barehanded in these temperatures requires efficiency. The cold rapidly strips dexterity from the fingers. He drives the final nails from the ladder, securing the heavy wooden borders around the glass. The thick trim provides deep shadow lines, giving the small cabin a robust, fortified appearance against the winter woods. The final major opening to seal is the main entrance. He cuts heavy timbers to form the door frame, wedging them tightly into the log walls. This framework must be perfectly plumb and square to support the weight of a solid door. A well-built frame isolates the moving parts of the door from the natural settling of the log structure. Outside, the final siding panels are nailed into place, covering the last patches of exposed insulation and wrapping the cabin in a continuous layer of pine. Inside, the interior casing is hammered flush, hiding the rough structural gaps. A small, battery-operated light fixture is mounted above the entryway. In the dark winter months of the high latitudes, a reliable light source near the threshold is a profound comfort. Outside, the primary defense against the cold is brought to the porch. He lifts a massive, custom-built wooden door, faced in a striking chevron pattern. The diagonal planks create a rigid shear web, ensuring the heavy door will never sag on its hinges. Hanging a heavy wooden door single-handedly is an exercise in leverage and patience. He sets the door into the frame, shimming it up from the floor to maintain a consistent air gap for a smooth swing. A hand-cranked drill is used to pre-drill the screw holes for the heavy iron hinges. While slower than modern power tools, the manual drill offers immense torque. It prevents the screws from snapping in the dense wood. Next, he bores into the frame to install the metal latch mechanism. The hardware must be aligned perfectly, so the latch drops cleanly under its own weight. A solid, mechanical click is the sound of a secure perimeter. Snow clearance becomes a daily routine. Shoveling the porch prevents ice dams from forming against the new threshold. Standing on a tree stump, he measures out the dimensions for the exterior door casing. A hand saw cross-cuts the heavy stock, while the plane takes down the high spots to ensure a perfectly flat mating surface. Measuring and cutting in the freezing air demands focus, as rushed work inevitably leads to wasted lumber. Every cut is checked twice before the heavy trim is brought to the frame. A few final passes. With the block plane, create a slight chamfer on the edge of the trim, removing the sharp corner that is prone to splintering. He aligns the heavy boards against the door jamb, hammering them home. This exterior bridges the gap between the rough siding and the finished door frame, blocking the brutal winter drafts that seek out every tiny crack. By locking the lower trim tightly against the decking, the threshold is fortified against driving snow. The cabin is now a fully sealed envelope. With the exterior secure, the final barrier against the cold is built overhead. He measures and cuts long pine boards, carrying them into the warm interior. These planks are nailed directly to the upper wall framing, enclosing the ceiling cavity. Because heat naturally rises, the upper portion of any shelter is where thermal loss is most severe. Trapping that rising warm air within the living space drastically reduces the firewood needed overnight. The overlapping wood creates a dense canopy, keeping the warmth down where it belongs. By nightfall, the glow of the campfire outside highlights the isolation of the finished refuge. The next day, the interior finish work begins. He hammers narrow trim boards around the perimeter of the door, concealing the raw studs and the insulation packed into the gaps. A similar treatment is applied to the small square vent window set deep into the log wall. These subtle wooden casings do more than improve the visual aesthetic. They lock the insulation permanently in place, preventing drafts from whistling through the shrinking timber as the cabin dries out over its first winter. A well-trimmed interior transforms a rough survival shelter into a permanent, comfortable home. As twilight brings heavy snowfall, he cuts thick lumber under the harsh glare of a work light. These boards will form the foundation of a permanent sleeping platform. Inside, the long planks are fitted against the wall and leveled on sturdy supports. Elevating a bed off the floor is crucial in cold climates. It keeps the sleeper out of the heavy pool of cold air that settles near the ground. He lies back on the raw timber to test the length and rigidity of the frame. A spirit level confirms the surface is dead flat, ensuring a restful sleep. A cabin needs a central workspace. He positions a wide, heavy slab of wood atop a thick log to form a rustic table. To finish the base, he steps out into the snow to peel a freshly harvested birch log. Stripping the bark with an axe removes the cambium layer where insects and moisture tend to harbor. Taking it down to the bare wood ensures the timber will dry cleanly indoors, without introducing rot or pests to the cabin interior. the axe work is refined, leaving a faceted, textured surface on the thick leg. He returns to the warmth of the cabin, maneuvering the heavy post under the tabletop until the structure stands firm and unyielding. To protect the raw wood, a liberal coat of clear oil is wiped across the surface. The oil penetrates deep into the pores, sealing the table against spills and moisture while dramatically enhancing the natural grain. The wood instantly comes to life. With the interior furnished, attention turns to the front porch. He uses an auger bit to bore deep, angled holes into a thick wooden slab. Venturing back into the tree line, he harvests a stout birch pole, cutting it to length with a handsaw. These stout rounds will serve as the legs for a rugged outdoor bench. Using an axe, he carefully tapers the ends of the logs. This technique relies on friction and precise geometry, a traditional approach to creating incredibly strong, fastener-free joints. The tapered ends are driven aggressively into the bored holes. The tight friction fit will only grow stronger as the green wood of the legs slowly dries. He sweeps the accumulated snow and wood shavings from the porch, keeping the entrance clear. To guarantee the bench remains solid under heavy use, long screws are driven up through the legs into the seat. The heavy block is then placed near the doorway, providing a dry place to sit and remove snow-packed boots before entering. A final pass with the hand plane leaves the seat perfectly smooth, shedding water and preventing splinters. Inside, the heavy work is over. In the end, structure, landscape, and daily routine operate as one system. This is a place built entirely by hand, a quiet, permanent refuge that produces, protects, and sustains itself.